Hello everyone, welcome back to the Hearth. I hope you're ready for another story. Just a few things to get out of the way before we begin. I've started posting the manuscripts to my stories on a website called Inkitt. I will post the link in the description, and I'll probably pin a comment with the link in there as well. The stories are completely free. You don't have to pay or anything like that. I just post them there so if people would rather read than listen, or if you want to, open up a separate tab and read along for anyone who's like die hard or just can't understand me. Either way, that works. But that way they're available for reading as well as listening. I already have all of my stories recorded to date up there on Inkitt. Because I haven't had a chance to record, so I haven't had a chance to tell any of you that they're there. But they're all there. I will during periods where I can write but not record, I will still be updating Inkitt. I'll still be posting the story written versions on Inkitt, even if it takes me a while between recordings, because to be frank, recording and editing the audio and everything's a lot more work, it's a lot more work. I still enjoy it, but it's a lot more work. But they're all up there. This one will be up there probably before the video goes up, so feel free to check it out. The Inkitt profile is just Fables Hearth. There's no apostrophe, because you're not allowed to use apostrophes for some reason. But at least not while you're making your name, which is just weird. But Fables Hearth. The written version of all my stories are up there. Feel free to check it out. I hope you enjoy them as much as you do listening to them. Second thing is just a disclaimer. This story is a scary one. If you don't like scary stories, this video isn't for you, so don't watch it. Don't listen to it. That said, for those of you who are still here, enjoy the story. He opened his eyes. It was pitch dark. He couldn't see a thing. He reached out, feeling around. He found he could barely move his arms before hitting some kind of wooden barrier. The barrier was all around him. Was he in some kind of box? That wasn't a good sign. There were only ever two reasons to be in a box, and neither of them were good. He hammered on the lid, pounding until it cracked, then broke into two pieces. He shoved the pieces aside and climbed out of the box. He was on a mountain of other boxes, all different sizes, but all the same basic rectangular shape. Many were broken apart, although just as many were still sealed shut. Printed on the sides of each and every box was the same word: Unwanted. He knew it would be there, but he still checked his own box, just in case, by some miracle, it wasn't there. Sure enough, though, the same word was plastered across the side of his own box. Part of him wanted to believe it was a mistake. Part of him wanted to believe that there was no way this could happen to him, but he knew that was just wishful thinking. He was still in his pajamas. He must have been delivered from his bed. He kicked the box, sending it sliding down the mound, shattering at the bottom. He looked around, taking in the other mountains of boxes that surrounded him. Hundreds of thousands of boxes, each one made to deliver an unwanted here, to the end of the line. He climbed his way down the boxes, managing to reach the ground without incident. At the bottom was a makeshift sign, made from a broken box lid. Welcome to the end of the line. Someone had made this sign. Someone was here. He wandered the yard, looking for life. The place was eerily quiet, and the mounds of boxes both opened and closed, were unnerving. He tried not to think about the closed boxes. He didn't want to envision what was under those lids. Suddenly, one of the boxes shifted. He started as the lid of the box clattered open, falling to the ground. A thin, gnarled hand reached up, gripping the side of the box. The crone heaved herself out, falling to the ground. She pushed herself into a sitting position, eyeing him. Her face was gaunt, with one eye swollen shut. The other eye was a sickening yellow color, her pupil constricted to just a pinpoint at the center. Her skin was a mottled gray, and she wore nothing but rags. Her legs were misshapen, swollen lumps. He was surprised she even fit in the box in the first place. She dragged herself closer to the box, leaning against it. She looked at him with her one eye. "So, you got out of your box, did you, boy?" He nodded. I don't know whether to call that an accomplishment or a pity. It might have been better for you to have just died in that box like these poor souls around us. The crone gestured to him. "Come closer. Let this eye get a good look at you." He walked over and squatted in front of her. She tilted her head one way, then the other, taking him in. She brushed aside some stray hairs and examined his face. Her hand felt dry and brittle on his skin, like a dead leaf. He was afraid her hand might crumble away if he moved too much. "This one isn't too bad," the crone mumbled to herself. "A shame they threw him away." She patted his cheek. "So, they didn't want you, eh?" He shook his head. "What's wrong with you? Can't learn?" He shook his head again. "Can't speak?" He shook his head a third time. "What then?" He shrugged. The crone clicked her tongue. "Another one of those, huh? A perfectly good boy, thrown away just because they didn't want him anymore. Ruined a good night's sleep, too, from the look of you." She chuckled. "We're in the same boat, then. Seems like no one wants to take care of their elders nowadays, either. You get to a certain age, and they toss you in a box. Used to be that only happened after you died." He looked at her legs. He knew it was rude to stare, but he couldn't help it. They were swollen up like balloons, giant lumps of flesh weighing her down. The crone grinned, her few remaining teeth yellowed and rotten, her gums black and stained. "Like my legs?" she said, cackling at herself. "It's this place, the end of the line. It rots everything, warps everything, makes us all into the sum of our woes and our hate. Someday it'll finish with me. I wonder what I'll become." She saw the shock on his face and cackled again. "Well, what do you expect? All these people abandoned in one place, stewing in their fear, their hate, their desire to be loved. Some of them can barely comprehend anything except that they've been abandoned, left here to die. So many have died. It's only natural that a place like this would twist us." Suddenly, the crone grabbed his hand, pulling him closer. He tried to pull away as her rancid breath stung his nose. "It'll twist you too if you don't get out." She released him, and he backed away. "It would have been better if you had just stayed in your box," she said. She slumped as if she had no more energy left in her. Her eye dimmed, and her swollen legs started to pulsate. Then slowly they grew until they were nearly doubled in size. "They really didn't want me?" she mumbled. "Was I really that much of a burden?" He turned and left quickly, uneasy. This place really had warped her in more ways than one. He was back to wandering the boxyard, as trying to find any one path through this place was useless. He simply did his best to walk in a straight line, hoping it would lead him somewhere. The crone had said something about getting out of the end of the line. That meant there was a way out, right? There was a way to escape this place. At some point, he realized he was hearing something. It sounded like movement. Heavy, wobbling movements, every now and then accompanied by the sound of boxes splintering underfoot. Whatever it was huge, and it was getting closer. The crone's words echoed in his mind. He didn't want to meet whatever warped denizen of the box yard this was. He ran, weaving his way around the box mounds, doing his best to put distance between himself and the noise. Soon the noise faded, and when he was once again confident he was safe, he slowed to catch his breath. Then he heard thunderous crashing racing in his direction. He couldn't run. The sound was closing in faster than he could dream of running. He'd be caught regardless. He had to hide. He ran to the nearest box mound. He grabbed the nearest open box and flipped it over on top of himself, getting as close to the other boxes as possible. Hopefully, whatever it was wouldn't look twice, thinking he was just another box. The crashing came closer and closer until the noise was practically right on top of him. Literally, whatever was moving around seemed to be above him, going from mound to mound. It stopped at his mound, and he heard boxes fall to the ground nearby. For a few moments, there was silence. Then a heart-wrenching wail shredded the air. He was taken aback by it. It wasn't terrifying. It wasn't blood-curdling or unsettling. It was a wail of pure, unending sadness, so forceful that he almost crawled out from under his box to try and comfort the screamer. He swallowed the urge and forced himself to stay hidden. He didn't know what he would be facing if he revealed himself, and there was no guarantee it would be as amicable as the crone. "Why did you run?" an unearthly voice wailed. It was high-pitched, like that of a child, but layered, like a chorus of children speaking just barely out of sync. "Do you want to leave us too? Why do you want to abandon us?" The voice was as unnerving as the wail was saddening. It was like nails dragged down a chalkboard. It made him grind his teeth. He curled up as much as the box would allow, as if he could hide from the noise. "Where are you?" the voice questioned, and there was more crashing as it tore the mound apart, throwing boxes everywhere. "Don't leave us. We won't let you leave us again." It wailed again, landing with such an impact that he nearly bounced out of the box. It was directly above him now. His heart was pounding so loudly he thought there was no way it wouldn't hear it. Yet, despite his thundering chest, the creature eventually gave one last screech and sped away, boxes crunching and squishing in its wake. He waited under his box long after it left. Slowly, he raised the box, creeping out from under it. He was alone, surrounded by shattered boxes and crushed corpses. He understood why this place was called the end of the line. That's exactly what it was meant to be, the end. It wasn't a dumping ground for the unwanted, it was a killing ground. He was overcome with a heavy, crushing feeling, the weight of abandonment. Just like that creature that had so ardently pursued him, he was abandoned, unwanted. It was in the name, after all. Purely by chance, he glimpsed something from the corner of his eye. It was another wooden sign. Some of the words were worn nearly to oblivion, but enough of them were intact to make out what it said. "Exit this way," with a question mark at the end. Below the words, an arrow pointing straight ahead. An exit? There was an exit? Although the sign didn't seem too confident in its proclamation. He stared at the sign, weighing his options. Staying in this box yard accomplished nothing. He would either die or become some twisted creature. If he followed this sign, the end may very well be the same. Or he may actually find a way out, an exit to this hell. He took one last look at the sign, then set off in the direction the arrow pointed. What did he have to fear from death? He wasn't unwanted. He was dead either way.